I'd like to start off the questions with Burke. You mentioned that you have done some research with some of the insurance companies. Do you have any suggestion as to how you deal with a denial? Someone who each individual insurance company has different standards, and in some cases have totally ignored some of the current medical information and medical research on myasthenia, and people have been turned down even after peer-to-peer reviews. Do you have any particular suggestions as to what the next step might be in order to get treatment approved?
Yeah, I tell my students that knowledge is no longer power. When I was a kid in school, that's what they told us. Well, that's not the truth anymore. What is truthful now is access to knowledge is power, and you all got it. Hold up your cell phone. You can connect with the internet, right? You can find all of the knowledge possible. Well, in litigation, the most important thing is to know what your side is and what you want and why you want it and why you deserve it. The next most important thing is to know what the other side wants and how you can keep them from getting what they want. And I mentioned that one website that I went through and found their clinical indications of treatment for myasthenia gravis. Here it is. So if I were in that situation, I apply to my insurance company for the particular treatment that my doc says I want. The insurance company says no. The best thing is to go to their website, find their equivalent, and see if they're following their rules. Now, as an old litigator, it doesn't surprise me that people sometimes aren't following their rules. So if you find somebody who's published rules, this is the clinical conditions that indicate the particular treatment you want, and it says it on their website, then all you got to do is say, can I direct you to your website? You may have to help them find it. But if you find it on their website, say, this is what you say I should get when I have this condition. My doctor says I have the qualifying conditions. Why aren't you giving me what you say you should get? That's a real strong position to be in. If you don't find that, if I don't have this equivalent on the website, then again, access to knowledge is power. Go through MGFA, and there are other places that are advocating for you guys. Find out what the current medical treatment is, and then give that information. Just work your way up the chain. Every insurance company by law has to have an appeals process, and some of you have probably already been through it many times, but you just keep hammering away. An advocate with power, with knowledge, that won't give up will ultimately get what you want. In the back, question. Hang on just a sec so she gets to the mic.
My name is Eleanor Georgeson, and I'm very fortunate to have Sue Klinger as leader of our support group in New York City. She's been through a lot with me, with Cigna Insurance, who has been vile. I've had my doctor do peer-to-peer appeals. I've had abstracts that I've submitted proving that IVIG is a viable treatment for myasthenia gravis. I have a rare type of MG. I'm seronegative. I've been on prednisone, thymectomy, CellCept. I've developed diabetes, cataracts. I'm having issues with my joints, my bones, and they relentlessly turn me down. This past fall, I wound up in ICU at New York Weill Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York, neuro ICU for 5 days, and I was so weak, they put me in rehab in the same hospital for almost 3 weeks. And they don't get it. They do not get that this must cost them so much more money, and it also costs me quality of life, and I don't know what to do, Mr. Christensen. I'm really at the point where I get so depressed. I need IVIG, I cannot get it, and then I always feel that it's almost a waste of insurance money to wind up going into the hospital, and that's where it leads me. I wind up being hospitalized for an exacerbation. Any suggestions?
A couple.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. One thing that I would do, I don't know if this association or others have an advocacy unit, but if they do, I would go to your association with that story and say, why can't my association write a letter to this insurance company, and then those folks are in the position of representing a lot more people and calling attention to this issue, and it's more than just one person. I'm a big fan of advocacy groups. I think MGFA is an awesome organization, and they're doing that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's within the boundaries of what MGFA does, but if it is, I would ask for that. So you have a bigger gun aiming at the person that you want to give you what you want. The second thing is, if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, right? Well, I'm a lawyer. For me, every problem looks like a lawsuit, and I would consider that. And when you do that, you should make yourself familiar with the rules in every state. There are requirements for how claims have to be treated and the proper handling of those claims. And if an insurance company is not doing what the law requires, then, and this is why your local plaintiff's counsel will be interested, there's a claim called bad faith. And if you file a bad faith action and win, then your lawyer's fees are paid by the person who loses. Now, don't tell anybody I said that. Yeah, right.
Okay, my question is for the Social Security person. My wife applied for Social Security. She was in crisis, and the doctor from your subcontractor looked at her paperwork that showed that she'd been in the hospital, she was in a wheelchair, and he just checked off, she can work 8 hours a day, standing up, sitting down, lifting stuff with myasthenia. It went all the way to the judge because of the 3 denials. Judge took one look at her and said, "You're disabled. Sit down before you fall down." I submitted 2 years ago for Social Security due to a heart condition. The doctor never contacted me or my attending physician and said my heart condition didn't warrant disability, even though I can't do my job because of the type of job I do. How do you get around that besides waiting now 2 years to go before the administrative judge to get through that? Because the subcontractor isn't even going through your attending physicians to see the real story or the rest of the story.
Well, I'm going to talk about that first question because that's an excellent question to bring up. If you don't submit enough medical evidence, and we're looking through these medical listings, and it's not there, then we have no choice but to get a subcontractor. So Social Security will pay for the doctor's consultation, they'll pay for travel, they send you to a physician. So you go see this physician, and usually, how much time do we get with a doctor? Are we lucky to get at least 10 minutes? Yes? So if somebody's seeing you for the first time, and you get a 10-minute consultation, what do you think the answer is going to be? Right? We need to be very, if the information is not presented on these medical listings, then you're probably not going to have a good medical review. So it goes back to, what do you have? What physicians have seen you that you have strong medical evidence? Because think about this, Social Security is unlike any other insurance out there. You have to be so severely disabled that you're not able to do any kind of work. And it has to be a disability that you expect to last 12 months or longer or result in death. It's a very serious disability to get Social Security. So the answer to your question is, you need to be prepared and bring medical evidence. If you get denied, you have a 60-day reconsideration process, appeal. If you get denied at the reconsideration, you have another 60 days. So this time, you now go before a judge. Now, I want to say, judges don't follow the same rules as the medical listing. They basically get to choose, or I shouldn't say that word, they get to decide, they get to look at you and see, based on medical evidence, they make their judgment. So they do not have to follow the Social Security listings, the medical listings. So a lot of the times, yes, decisions get overturned at a hearing level. With your heart condition, again, if it's not on the medical listing, that's probably why it was denied. If you feel that, look, my disability is so severe, then I would say, please file an appeal. If you get denied, file another appeal, and now you get to go before that judge. They do not contract anyone. That's not their position. When we hire these secondary physicians, it's because the individual, the wage earner, the person that filed for Social Security disability did not bring enough medical evidence. So if you did not bring enough medical evidence and we have hired a third-party contractor, we're just going to go based on their decision. They do not. They are not ever going to contact your physician because they are just now a third party. And I'm glad that you're asking that question over and over again because we need to make sure you all understand that. It is your right, your responsibility to bring medical evidence the first time around and make sure that it's on the medical listing. Because if we feel that there's nothing there, we get a lot of claims from homeless people. They're disabled. Okay, what physicians have you seen? None. So now we have to go and send them to one of our physicians who basically will give them a 10-minute consult. But a lot of the times, that 10-minute consult is pretty evident of the severity of that disability. If it's a disability where it's really not seen, you're probably going to get denied. So then it's going back to you. Find a clinic, find a physician, find an expert that could document your medical information and put it right into what our listings are reading. Okay.
Thank you. I worked for 28 years for as head of program services and clinical care for the MS Society. So I want to say a couple of things from my experience. You are absolutely right. Over the years, we saw people who would get through Social Security, through their disability process, on the first, maybe even just the second denial, and would be approved. And every single time it was because they were well prepared with medical evidence from their physician. If you don't have that, you will get turned down. So it really, you have got to take charge of this and make sure that you've got the evidence that you need well documented. The second thing, and I think, Kathy, this is something that we can do as an organization. We're little, and many of the treatments that are used for MG haven't really had huge amounts of trials in MG. They're being used off-label, they're used for something else, and that's really hard with insurance and where we get into so much trouble. One of the things I think we can do to help our physicians is enlist our experts, our MSAB, our nurses, to help us create template letters for appeals. Because the National MS Society has done this for probably more than 25 or 30 different medications that are used in MS, many of them off-label, like Provigil, which is for narcolepsy, but helps with MS fatigue, or Nuvigil. There's a letter that explains from the medical expert, and when you can go in with that and give that to your physician, it will help you to have a more effective argument. So I think this is something we as an organization may be able to do because there are not so many different treatments that we have to
I want to
go
add to
at.
your comment because what you're saying really makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that I want to share is that Social Security back in February of 2008, they also, I don't know if you've heard of these terms, quick disability determinations, compassionate allowances. You can go to the website and find all about it, but it's under the quick disability determination, Social Security is going to be looking at the medical evidence. And there's this computer. It's a computer-based predictive model that screens the application and is looking for ways to identify and approve claims much, much faster. So when the medical evidence is being submitted, our computers are scanning and they pick up certain words that say, yeah, this is going to be an award. We put it to the side, and it gets done like 30 days. You know, it's just fast. I have processed claims within less than 30 days, and when Johnny was talking about the retroactive benefit, if you think you're going to be disabled for 12 months or longer, do not wait, because we can only go back 12 months. Recently, I just sent a check to a young military triple amputee guy who's 22 years of age, had no clue he could get Social Security disability. We filed this claim November of 2014, and we were only able to go back to November of 2013, but he had been disabled since 2012. So we can only go back 12 months. He got a check for $17,533, and that was very helpful for him. And the same thing could be for you, your clients, your patients, your neighbors. You know, if you think you're going to qualify and you have the medical listings, please be prepared and submit your claim. Thank you.
I'm Ann Robertson, and I'm from California. I'm a retired educator. And I don't know if this is true in other states, but you being a California Social Security representative knows that as an educator, we do not get full Social Security because of the pension. It's called double dipping in California. And I don't know if that applies in other states or not.
Oh, yes. It's called the windfall elimination
okay.
provision.
It is the fact that right now I don't need disability. I might need disability in the future. I don't know. The fact that I only get 40% of my Social Security that I was qualified for, does that mean that my benefits for disability or my benefits in the future might be lowered as a result of only receiving 40% of what I was qualified for? And secondly, is there a way that because of having the MG that I could apply for the full amount that I was notified that I was qualified for, but I can only get 40%. Am I making sense of
Oh,
this?
absolutely. You are to me. I know what you're talking. So if you get Social Security disability right now, let's say you were to qualify and you were to get disability, yes, you were a teacher, and you have this offset. If you're not getting that pension from that other entity, you will get whatever we have quoted you on that Social Security statement. Okay, but the moment you start collecting this pension, this government pension that was not covered by Social Security, then your Social Security benefits will be reduced. And let me just make it super quick as to why this reduction occurs. I know very often safety officers, judges, teachers that don't pay into Social Security always want to know, but I paid. Why are you all reducing my benefits? Because the Social Security program is a social program. It compensates people at different levels. So if you're a very wealthy individual, and I'm sure you all know Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, they get a 35% return on their pre-retirement earnings. If you're an average wage earner, which most of us probably in this room are, we will get a 40% return on our pre-retirement earnings. If you happen to be someone that is very low wages, maybe worked as a cashier all their life at McDonald's, a migrant worker, someone that had very, very low wages, they get a 55% return from Social Security. So when we take the high 35 years of your lifetime earnings, we either put you in the 55% bracket, 40%, or 30%, 35%. You file for retirement and we ask you, or disability, and we ask you the following two questions. Were you ever covered by another pension not covered by Social Security? And you say yes. And it's probably when you were in high school, college, you earned your 10 years of earnings, that's why you get Social Security. So you say, yes, I do qualify for another pension. And then we ask you, well, how much is it? And then you'll tell us whatever the amount is. So then we take you from that 55% bracket because you are not that individual that Social Security needs to compensate for very low wage earners because you technically were working in a different entity paying into that system. And this is where this windfall elimination provision comes in. And this is where the reduction occurs. If you don't collect that pension, you get the full Social Security that you're being quoted. Once you collect the pension from that other entity, it gets reduced from 55% to 40%, which is what every one of us technically gets. And that's the offset.
Hi, I just wanted to say some positive things about insurance and Social Security because I was, I was in crisis. I was in the hospital for 3.5 months. I was intubated. I was on a vent. I had IVIG treatments 20 plus times, plasmapheresis 20 plus times. I had rituximab, chemo treatment 4 or 5 times. I was, I had a thymectomy. They threw everything at me. I had the works.
Well, you're definitely a warrior.
And yeah, I made it through, and but I'm in remission now. But we applied for Social Security disability, got that in first try. The hospital submitted records which were probably that thick on me. Insurance-wise, I worked for a large corporation, and I had retirement insurance through United Healthcare. They paid everything. I calculated from the time I first went into the hospital to after my release, and the hospital bills that were sent from the doctors, from everything, totaled $2.5 million. They covered it all.
Excellent.
So thank you, United Healthcare, and thank you, Social Security. Just a happy story to let you know.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I truly believe in Social Security. And, you know, people are thinking about, oh, Social Security is not going to be there. You just never know when you're going to be collecting Social Security. So sign up for my Social Security statement, and you can read the front page. It tells you all about the year 2033 and what's happening, and all of you should know what's happening in the year 2033. Yes?
Yes, I had a question about, at what point, if you're can you collect disability, and does that stop when you reach normal retirement age?
So at
Or
65,
how do you integrate
So
the
if you
two?
start collecting Social Security disability, let's just say at 37 years of age, now you become full retirement age, and your age happens to be 66 full retirement age, you basically continue getting the same benefit, but it's just that for our records, we go from disability to retirement. That's the only transition, and you will always get the cost of living once a year. It's always the same amount of money, yes.
I have one quick question for the insurance. Burke, I'm struggling with trying to get Mestinon, the brand name, versus the generic. I'm seeing a huge difference between when I was taking Mestinon and the generic. The doctor tells me that because it's a mild form of MG, I should be okay with the generic. How do I fight that?
How do you
How do I fight that with insurance? They won't pay for the brand name.
complain?
But how do I fight it? What do I have to do?
Well, the position you're taking is that the generic brand doesn't perform as well as the brand name, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what you need to do is give the insurance company some reason to say, okay, we'll do that. And that information can come from your doctor. So your doctor needs to be able to say to the insurance company, you provide coverage for this condition. The coverage you want to provide is a generic drug. We've been good people. We've tried to use the less expensive one, but it doesn't work as well as this one. And then the doctor says, in my opinion, it's medically necessary to move to the brand name, and then fight with the peer-to-peer review.
So my doctor's not supporting that it's medically necessary to get on Mestinon. Do I just change doctors? Okay, thank you.
Let me make one comment, and I'll sit down and shut up. Lawyers and doctors are like bus drivers. They work for you. You don't work for them. And so if a doctor or a lawyer is not giving you the right service that you should get from your plumber or anybody else, you get a new doctor or lawyer.
Okay, well, I want to thank Joni, Burke, and Yolanda. This has been extremely informative, and we know it's an extremely important issue for all of us.